I leave for Arizona with this Land Rover in less than 2 weeks. This needs to be running, driving, it needs to have lockers, it needs to be on 37s, needs to be a fully functional, stopping, moving, steering vehicle. And we have so much work to do. Right now it does not run, it does not steer, it does not stop, it has no axles or suspension, so we need to get to work. I get to find out how good my videos are. I have given Nick zero instruction other than, hey, we need these two third members to be re-geared. I have already made full videos on how to re-gear the Land Cruiser 80 axles. So I have Nick all set up with all the tooling, and I'm hoping that by just watching the videos, he'll be able to cobble these together and get them within spec so that we have 529 gears from Yukon Gear and Axle underneath this Land Rover. This old Land Rover is going to get a set of upgraded axles from a 1995 Toyota Land Cruiser. These are much beefier, they're wider, they have disc brakes, they're an upgrade in every metric. And on top of that, we're going to upgrade these 1995 Toyota Land Cruiser axles with some chromoly front shafts. We're using Yukon ring and pinions. These are 529s, and if you've watched the channel before, you know that I prefer Yukon ring and pinions. They just install much easier. We're going to use a set of lockers from ARB, and all in all, these should greatly surpass the amount of power we're going to put to these axles, and they should greatly surpass the amount of demand that is going to be put on them, because this is such a lightweight vehicle, and we're going to be doing it. We're building this mostly for snow. The fan is a different bolt pattern.
No, it's not.
In the last episode, we did a diesel swap, and the fan does not fit with the radiator that is in this Land Rover. So I was reluctantly going to try to use the fan off the engine that came in this thing stock, but it's so small. I didn't feel great about it, but I was just going to see if it fit. It does not fit. So now we got to go plan B, which is going to be try to figure out a way to package an electric fan in here somehow. I'm just going to put that fan on here. We're going to see how it works, and if we have to swap the radiator out later, we can. This fan is already super slim, but for us to be able to make this work, I'm gonna have to put this right on the radiator. So I'm gonna use these little like zip tie jammies that are made to mount fans into radiators, like directly on it. I don't love these, but they do work. So for now, at least, this is how it's gonna be. I'm also gonna do everything I can to scoot this radiator farther forward, so it'll be as far away from the engine as possible, because I'm telling you, this is going to be a nail biter on whether or not I can get this fan to fit in here. I'm desperate enough that I'm even going to swap the hardware in order to shave off fractions of an inch to make this possible, because I don't have time to reinvent the wheel here. We just need this to be mounted. We need a way to cool this engine, and we need to get to Arizona. Finally figured out a combination that works. We are still ultra close, but we're at least not touching. As I discovered, we were actually touching with the fan before, and the radiator wasn't even slid all the way back like it should be. Now we're slid all the way back into place. We have clearance. It's gonna be like impossible to see in the camera, but you could fit a few credit cards in there without it without rubbing. So the other pulley doesn't fit. The other water pump doesn't fit. I thought of everything, and nothing else works. Unfortunately, turns out we probably could have done a push fan, which would have made this 100 times easier. I did get a comment from a guy who said that he did a push fan with this radiator and he doesn't have any issues. But whatever, we've got a pull fan, we've got it fitting, and I'm confident that this is going to work for us. This is not like a common swap that you can just find out about online, so I'm not completely sure that this radiator is quite enough for this engine. But I think that we're going to be able to help it out a lot with a nice thick oil cooler. So this is going to be the first step towards adding additional cooling to this factory radiator. I like this factory radiator because it fits exactly where it should be, because it's what came with the vehicle. So I want to do what I can to keep it. If this oil cooler is not enough to help keep the temps in check with this radiator, and things are just slightly above what I think they should be, then I'll probably add a secondary oil cooler with a fan that'll come on at low speeds. But honestly, the first thing we need to do is just use it. We need to put this whole thing together, get out on the trail, and see how this cooling system works before I make any modifications. And while I've been working my way through the plumbing and the cooling system on this thing, Nick has been working away on these ring and pinions and locker installs. And so it's time to check in with him and see how everything's going.
It is a touch deep.
That's what I was thinking. It's pretty good though, especially on drive side.
It's so close. God, it's close. It's
I know.
super close.
You're saying what I was thinking though too.
Well, but you've got the right backlash?
Yeah, it's 7 thousandths.
7?
7.5. Could back it off a little more, I guess, and
It goes to 10?
then see if it looks better.
Put it at 10.
Put it at 10.
Let's
Okay.
see what it looks like with 10. Because it is like, it's on the edge of being runnable.
Yeah.
If we just give it a little more slop, which helps some run cooler anyway. Yeah. Take it out to 10, repaint it. Let's just see what happens.
Okay.
Now that I've got an oil cooler mounted, I want to do the air filter. And this oil cooler is, I think, going to work good. It's not as big as I thought it was whenever I ordered it, but it is like, it does match the dimensions of what we need. Anyway, the air filter. I figure some of you guys are going to find this interesting. So I've owned a number of old vehicles, and this is the third or fourth that is an oil bath style air filter. So check this out. The way this works, if you're unaware, is you actually fill this with oil, and then it sucks air up through the oil and actually filters your air with the oil. This is actually super, super good at cleaning out like dust and dirt and stuff like that, but it is bad for efficiency. The guy that I bought the engine from had a Defender air filter, and Defender air filters are not oil bath. These are just a normal, hey, come on. This is just a normal paper filter, which is what I prefer because it's so nice if you're on really long trips to be able to just pull the, oh, of course, gotta be smarter than the filter. And I found a website online where I bought like, I think these were like $3 or $4 a piece or something super cheap, maybe $5. So I bought like 5 or 6 of them. So I'm replacing the oil bath style, which is good, just not as efficient, with this. And I do really like this air filter assembly in the way that it's designed. It's similar to the Land Cruiser 80 that I did last year, in the fact that it's designed to like spool the air up, and then it all the crap will settle down there. I need to get a new one of these little nippley things, but other than that, I think this is gonna be a really nice setup. Plus, I'm gonna do a snorkel on this because I like snorkels. I think they're really good at cleaning out air and helping with keeping the dust down. And this has the ability to put a snorkel right into the side of it.
Believe it or not, this is a controversial topic, which I know it's 2024. What isn't a controversial topic these days? But there is a conversation being had between the camp of oil bath air cleaners versus paper elements. And here, to me, it's basically application dependent. For my application, I think that a paper air filter makes way more sense for somebody that wants to be able to very quickly and easily change an air filter. You know, if you're on a long trip and you want to change halfway through like I do, like I just did a 9-day trip in Nevada last May, and I changed my air filter twice. You know, we're doing 1,000 miles of off-road, just a couple of days of dusty environments, doing a couple hundred miles. You roach air filters so fast. I would hate to have to change an oil bath air filter on the trail somewhere. Whereas what I normally do is I just pull out the paper element, throw the new one in, clip it back together, and boom, I'm done. And I think that makes a lot more sense for your average Joe. Also, for me, we've got a situation where this is being made, this Land Rover, I'm making it specifically for snow and cold climates. So I think that this oil is just going to get super thick in the winter, and especially in the snow, you don't need really great filtering anyway. So I just don't see any like big pros to keeping the oil bath air cleaner. And for those reasons, I'm swapping out the oil bath style for the paper element style. I think it just makes a lot more sense to me. But if you're someone who has like a Baja Bug or something, you love to just do long dusty miles in the desert, and you're not getting like super off camber or anything like that, I think an oil bath makes a lot of sense, as long as you're not doing trips that are like 3-4 days in a row where you're gonna have to change that oil out like mid-trip.
The worst thing you can do for these old diesels is introduce air into the system. They're so sensitive to it. So I am going to vacuum prime everything. Right now what I'm priming is I'm sucking all the fuel out of the tank. I'm gonna fill up our giant fuel filter. And once we get fuel to this point, I'm gonna hook it into the little lift pump that's on the engine, and then I'll pump it to then prime it until I see fuel coming out of the return on the injection pump. Oh, that was quick. We already got diesel. Okay, well, now I realize I want to make a mess. Okay, that's not too bad. Put that on there. Okay, we have diesel. We have a full fuel filter. Now we have diesel all the way to our lift pump.
Unfortunately, when priming the lift pump, I discovered that this lift pump is definitely bad.
That's not good.
On the what pump?
The lift pump, the primer doesn't, it's not, I don't think the primer's pumping fuel.
I pushed the primer and nothing happens, which means that the diaphragm in the pump itself is torn. Now, this engine came from a vehicle that was running like just a few weeks ago. Like I saw a video on Facebook Marketplace of it running, but that doesn't mean the lift pump was good then either. Sometimes with some engines, lift pumps will go bad and the injection pump has enough suction to continue to keep things running, but it's not good on the injection pump, and oftentimes it'll lead to weird like idling and all kinds of other issues. So the good news is I'm doing the engine before all this other stuff, so I still have enough time to locate one of these lift pumps and install it so that we can turn it over, make sure the engine works, and then move on to reinstalling our axles, installing the suspension, building our steering, all that other stuff, the brakes, all the other stuff we need to get to. But all of that is stuff that I have on hand, whereas I don't know what I need for this engine yet, and that is why I'm motivated to get this thing working now. I want to check entire systems off of our list, and to me, a catch can is part of the intake system. So since we just did the snorkel, we just did the intake, we have an air filter, now I want to mess around with the positive crankcase ventilation system. And all engines have this, all automotive engines at least, the stuff that I've worked on. And turbo engines, it's extremely important, and old turbo diesels with a boatload of miles, they need it, in my opinion, because I don't want to just vent this to atmosphere, the crankcase ventilation system. It's honestly, it stinks super bad in the vehicles that I've done that to, and I do think that there is an added benefit to have a slight amount of suction on that system to make sure that everything is being ventilated properly. So what a catch can does is it's basically a way to filter out oil vapor before it goes back into the intake, and making it to where you're shooting less oil vapor in through your turbo, and then sometimes it'll bleed back in and make your air filter super dirty. I'm gonna get rid of this old motor, and I want to go topless for the Arizona trip in this Land Rover, but this rear door that's on the Land Rover is huge. I mean, it's this giant one-piece door. But I've seen these little guys down here, and I was thinking that must be like hinges for a tailgate maybe. So I called a local Land Rover place, and they have a bunch of like ratty tailgates. So they also said they're interested in my old axles and the old motor. So I'm gonna see if I can like trade the old axles and old motor for a tailgate. But in the meantime, so I'm about to load all that up. But I guess I should, before I get to the next step here, let's talk about this weird aluminum stuff I'm building. I bought this as a windshield washer fluid receptacle for another project for like 30 bucks, long time ago. It's just been sitting in a box, and I was like, you know what, that's the perfect size for a catch can. This thing definitely needs a catch can. So in order to make it cheap, I mean, we started with a very cheap box, and then this is just like aluminum tube that you get at Ace Hardware, and it's 3/4, and 3/4 is the size. So I have a few different sizes of tube like this that I can use because it's so much cheaper than fittings. So, you know, a $10 3-foot stick of tube or whatever this cost me is now ends up turning into fittings. So we've got an inlet here, outlet there. We're gonna do the old school trick where we're gonna stuff it with a whole bunch of steel wool. This is going to be, this is probably still super hot. This is going to be our power steering reservoir. So again, it's just so much cheaper and easier to start with somebody else's box. If I had more time, I'd probably build my own box from scratch. But in order to save cost, this bung is actually like a 1/2 inch aluminum coupling from like Home Depot. Like you can get these anywhere, cut them in half, and now you have an aluminum bung. So this is gonna be 1/2 inch MPT, and this will be our reservoir. Dirt lifestyle, sketchy engine transport. Oh boy. Let's open up this door and see if this fits and how it looks. Looks like it's the right size.
Yeah.
That'll be cool. This is the final piece of the puzzle for my snorkel. This snorkel's for a Defender. It's not for one of these, but I was able to make it work. But it was like the cheapest eBay snorkel I could find. And I thought steel would be killer because it just looks like period correct for this thing. And we should have super spoolie sounds out of it, which makes me very excited. But there was like no hose to connect from here to here. Unless I'm looking at the kit wrong, which is very possible. Anyway, this right here, guess what this is called? It's called a hump hose, and no, I'm not joking. That's it sounds like a slang term, but it literally says 2 3/4 hump hose right there, boom. So what's nice about these versus just like a traditional coupling is that this has the ability to flex. Usually you can get like almost 20 degrees out of them. This one is really stiff, and yeah, it's a stiff hump hose. I said that out loud. The ones that, so like I'll save them. You'll see these on factory applications, I feel like a lot more often. So I have like a double hump hose in the engine bay here off of a Cummins. And this is like a single one, and because this is not rubber, this is silicone, it feels like it's not quite as, we'll see if it works. Whatever, Nick, don't judge me because I said double hump hose out loud. We are now minutes away from checking intake off the list, which is going to be very good. We've already got fuel system done today. We've got the cooling system done. And to be able to check intake off in its entirety just means that I need to finish up this catch can, get everything plumbed into place, all the hose clamps fitted, and move on to the next thing. Oh no. Oh shit.
Oh, the box.
Oh man. Oh man, that is a huge problem.
Oh, is that gonna get away in the way of the charge piping?
Yes. I'm 99% sure it will.
That thing's.
Let's see.
So it looks like I'll be doing some tweaking on the lower charge pipe at the bare minimum. But like, is that steering box pushed out? Yeah. It sure is. Oh, this is a big problem.
You've heard me say it in past videos, order of operation is so important for all this stuff, and I got the cart way before the horse. In the last video, I had already started doing the steering box, and I should have finished that up before I did all this other stuff, because I just spent a whole bunch of time building out an intercooler and like welding and modifying an intercooler to fit into this, getting all the charge pipes lined up, everything flared, like it's ready to go. And it goes right into where the steering box needs to be. And if I would have just completed that thought, completed the steering box, then I would have seen that and I would have modified the intercooler in a different way. So now what this means that I need to finish this steering box, which was the next thing I was going to do anyway. Make sure that it is 100% installed. I want all the lines to it and from it all done. And then I can modify this intercooler piping and this intercooler for the second time, and hopefully I can squeeze an intercooler in here. This engine doesn't have to have one, but in my opinion, because of what the demand is going to be, it has to have one. It's so important to have a cold intake charge, even at low boost, whenever you have an engine that is an indirect injected engine that runs super hot anyway.
I don't know how to feel about this panhard bar. This is the weirdest track bar mount I've ever done. This is my least favorite invention that I've ever done, but I don't know what else to do. So coil bucket has to go where it is. It has to go above the axle on top of the coil mount on the axle. The steering box can't go any farther forward because the pitman arm faces forward, and I can't have a crazy angle that's like pitched from pitman arm over to our steering arm. It's already crazy enough. I can't push this farther forward, not to mention the fact that this is already going into the grill. If I push it much farther forward, it's going to literally be in front of the grill. So on top of that, we have a panhard bar or a track bar that we have to locate. And there's just no room for it. So this is the best I could come up with. You can still remove the pitman arm. I just have to remove the steering box in order to do so. Good news is it's very rare that you remove a pitman arm anyway. This is 1/4 inch. It's a huge 1/4 inch gusset. I plug welded the holes on the inside. It's welded all across the frame. It's a 3-inch wide frame, fully welded on both sides. Then I've got this gusset right here that shores it up side to side. And then it's gonna be hard to see, but I've got a huge gusset in here to box that in. I hate this. I would love to somehow shore this up in some other dimension, but there's coils here and steering has to rotate here. There's not much I can do. And the good news is it is in the right spot. I mean, if I measure from the center of the axle to where my mount is gonna be on the axle, this is exactly the right distance. And then if I measure from where the coil is here to like where, you know, this direction, same deal. I've got really good angles. I just don't know if we're gonna get away with it strength-wise. I think I've just got to run it, and if I'll have to inspect it for the first few trips and see if there's any cracks forming. And if they're not, we're probably good because everything's light and low power, which is very nice. We have light axles, we have a light vehicle. But good Lord, do I hate this.
You can't tell a time perspective in a video like this because I had to condense things down, but the days are just melting away and the weeks are melting away. So this honestly is not a very big change, but just that extra pressure of that looming deadline. It sucks. This is a power steering filter that I stole off the TJ. This was in there for 5 years or so, maybe even a little more. The filter looks okay, and I'm being cheap with this vehicle, so we're gonna reuse it. And all I did was just wipe down the magnet. So the way this works is it passes through a magnet, right, then through here, and then it goes through this filter. And it's not really to filter like any of the stuff that makes the fluid black. I guess that this filter might help with that, but really, to me, the big value is that it's passing all the fluid over a magnet. So if there's anything that is like going through your system for whenever you put it together or anything like that, the idea that I have something to catch that is great. So obviously anything steel will get caught up in the magnet, and then any like little aluminum bits or anything from these power steering lines would get caught up in the filter. And then this is gonna make it to where we can keep our pump nice and healthy. I don't typically add a power steering filter or a power steering cooler to like existing fully functional systems. It's usually when I'm building one from scratch, because you're already in there, you're already doing custom lines and everything. It's not that much extra time to add it, and it's, you know, 30 or 40 bucks of Amazon parts, and you have a system that is now filtered and cooled, and you'd be shocked at how hot your power steering system gets whenever you're trying to navigate your way through, you know, complicated obstacles. That's not good. I already got a leak. Dang it. That sucks. I suppose I could have used gaskets there instead of just RTV, but that's not going to keep me from starting it. It just means I'm going to make a big old mess. This one is glow plug. Got power to it. Okay. This is the shutdown solenoid. I heard it open. That's a really loud click. We clearly have plenty of juice to our starter solenoid, but for some reason it is not startering. So I am going to take the power probe. I'm going to set it on like noise to where we can hear whenever it has power. I'm going to wedge it in a way that whenever we turn it over, we should be able to hear it beep. No way. We have a bad starter. I am bumping this starter every which way with a mallet to try and get it to work and cooperate with us, and it is not interested, unfortunately. So I wanted to hear this run today, and I'm not going to get to. Pretty bummed. I don't know exactly. I don't know. I need this W. I need this thing to turn over. I need it to run. Because we don't have time to figure it out. We've got to get this going. So I'm taking a break. I'm going to run up. I'm going to hang out with my kids, put them to bed, and then I'll come back down here and tinker and try to figure out what's going on, or I'll do something else that makes me happy. We're on a super tight deadline, obviously, and I work 7 days a week. I don't take any days off. But just giving myself an evening to hang out, watch shows with my wife, this was a really good mental health choice for me. I really needed that to just go in and not be frustrated. Ordered a new starter last night, watched some shows with the wife. We're watching Alone. Love that show. We've watched all the North American seasons, the ones up in Canada, over and over, and we just started watching the Australian one, which is awesome. So now I've got fresh perspective. We've got a starter on the way. I'm gonna pop in the shop and I'm going to slide the axles underneath. I'm going to finish the axles today,
getting all the brackets welded, making sure everything's located, doing everything I want to do to them, paint them so that whenever Nick comes into work tomorrow, he can start assembling the axles and I can be chipping away at all the other little details we need to do to this in order to make it trail ready. So then hopefully whenever the starter shows up, this thing turns over, we fix any leaks we might find. Oh yeah, I need to get some gaskets for that thermostat. And we can hopefully make it here in the next, I mean, I got like a week and a half, and we're actually less than that. And this is going to be driving onto a trailer or a truck bed and going to Arizona.
I definitely feel a little bit more anxious and overwhelmed in an extremely cluttered shop, and it has been a nightmare in here lately. So I'm going to just clean things up a bit. I'm going to take half an hour to an hour and just get stuff tidy. And then I'm going to try to get ahead of this week. It's Sunday, and before Nick comes in tomorrow, I'd like to have a rear end for him to assemble. That's what we're gonna do today. And I've got these cool little like strap things that are gonna be welded onto the front and rear axles that I've been using these in projects forever. You can get these from Barnes 4-Wheel Drive, and they have a couple different options for things like this. And what they do is they allow you to strap directly to this little piece of metal instead of having to wrap your strap around the axle when you get it on the trailer. And if you've strapped as many things down as me, you know that you'll often have to like wrap your strap around brake lines and other stuff that's a little uncomfortable. So this not only makes it faster to strap things down onto a trailer and then get back on the road, but it also makes it a little bit safer, in my opinion, for all the other stuff that you don't want to try to like weave around on your axle. I wanted to make a cheap way to mount my brake lines. This is just present Nate helping out future Nate. So I took a chunk of angle iron that was out of our recycle bin, not the scrap area, but like literally we're gonna go take it to the recycling. And for next to nothing, I chopped up a chunk of angle iron, threaded it 1/4-20, and they just turned out to be like the perfect way, I think, to mount hard brake lines that are gonna be going along our front and rear axles. Then I'm moving on to paint, and I'm using a rust converter primer. I have heard mixed reviews on this stuff, but personally, I have had great luck with it. I don't know if it actually converts the rust, but I know that it definitely encapsulates it in a way that I haven't seen other primers do. So I figure this first coat of paint, we'll use this rust converter primer just because there's so much pitting in these axles from them being like, spending their lives in Idaho and just, just being exposed to a lot of salt. Let's just put it that way.
Can't say that one on camera.
Yeah. Did you know that Marlin Crawler is part of the Onyx Elite Partner Program? I've known Mike, the president of Marlin Crawler, for the last few years and been wheeling with him and camping with him, and I can vouch this is a great family and a great company to work with. And all the gaskets, seals, bearings, everything you're seeing us assemble this front and rear axle with are all from Marlin Crawler. It's all OEM quality, way better than dealer prices. Go to a Toyota dealer and try to get all the bearings and seals and everything you need to put together the rear end for a 80 series Land Cruiser, and you'll see what I'm talking about. The Marlin Crawler prices are outstanding, and if you become an elite member with Onyx Off-Road, then you get to save even more through companies like Marlin. In fact, Yukon Gear and Axle, 74 weld, have you been eyeing portals? They're not cheap, but you can save money on portals, on method bead grips, on all these great products all across the industry if you become an elite member.
I mean, I want to get it running first, to be honest with you. tighter. Uh-oh. Spin that.
Oh, wait, what does that mean?
That means it probably grabbed our line.
And it's like
That's what I'm assuming.
ramming into a wall.
I've never seen that happen. Yep. Already shaving it.
Now's the point in the project where things just start moving super fast. We've got a lot of time wrapped up in preparation to make sure that everything fits together before we painted it and all that stuff. Now, it's just assembly. We've got to get everything on here. I've got to order drive shafts, which huge shout out to Adam's Drive Shaft. I was able to put in an order. It's extremely last minute. They made sure that they got it done and out to me right away. And so within just a couple of day turnaround, I've got drive shafts for this Land Rover, which is amazing because it was definitely something I was worried about because you can't accurately measure them until the axles are in. But once the axles are in, pull some measurements, send them some pictures of what we're working with here, and then boom, we've got drive shafts. I had to wait to do front shock mounts until we had the steering box in, but now the steering box is in, I can confirm that I can build these in a way that I'm not going to screw myself when it comes to the steering linkage, because that's still something we're going to have to tackle. And but I want to get the shocks ordered right now because we only have like a week left before we leave. So anyway, we go from there to power stop brakes. We're throwing power stop brakes on all four corners. These are just direct replacement brakes for the Land Cruiser 80, which is already a brake upgrade for what we had in here before in the stock Land Rover axles. And then we can start figuring out the winch situation.
It's gotta be snug.
Preparing for a lift here. Yeah, it is gonna be snug. Like tall ways, you think?
I don't know. I mean, if we have to slip it up, if we have to go upside down, we can. It's a winch. I don't think it knows if it's vertical or not.
Yeah, it shouldn't, I suppose.
Full Top Gun, dude. We were inverted.
There she goes.
Then we gotta go inverted.
I blow my shoulder out laughing.
Or we slayed on its back. We talked about that. I've built a number of off-road trucks now, and I've snow-wheeled a number of off-road trucks now. And something that I have noticed over the last 2 years is that it seems like the vehicles that have more rear weight than front weight perform better in snow. Come on, girl. Come on. This is getting deep. It's just a theory I have right now, and I want to test more of it this winter. This overall is super light, and even when it's in snow form, it's going to be really light. It's going to probably be like 3,500 pounds, 4K absolute tops, which is really good if you've got 38-inch balloony Icelandic snow tires. But this is super front heavy. I mean, we haven't had it on scales yet, but there's no argue. I mean, the drivetrain's so short, the transfer case like ends like right below your seat. So like all the drivetrain is in the front of the vehicle, which I like for rock crawling personally. That's how I set my Samurai up. I want it to be as front heavy as possible so that as soon as the front tires get on something, it just pulls the rear right up. But in snow, I have a theory that whenever you have more rear weight or closer to a 50-50, it's easier for the front to go up on top of stuff without sinking, and then it can just kind of drag, or I don't know, maybe the rear helps push the front up and over. In any case, what I would like to do for performance is I'd like to move some of the weight from the front to the back. We have a 600-pound engine. We weighed that in the last video. The last thing I want to do is put a Warren 8274 on the front of this thing past that 600-pound engine and then add like, 150 pounds on the very front. And that's if we keep the stock bumper, which I would like to, just for weight savings. So what I think we're gonna do, at least for this first iteration of this, is we're gonna try just putting a rear mounted winch in here. So all the way, because no matter what, we're gonna have a winch. So instead of having it in the front, why don't we allocate all that weight to the rear? And then I even wanna move the battery back there. Battery's a pretty heavy unit, so if I can put both of those under the chassis, towards the back of the vehicle, I think we're probably gonna get a little bit better handling. I bet it's gonna ride a little softer too, and I'm hoping it'll do a little bit better in the snow. Now, if we determine that having a rear-mounted winch is not beneficial for the type of wheeling we're gonna do with this, then I could always add an 8274 or something in the front later. But I think for now, we're just gonna try running a rear winch and see how it performs. Flex out here and there, I think it'll be, we got the room for it. 2-inch will get us.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about.
It's officially the last Friday before I leave. My brother's gonna come over and give me a hand pulling the top of the doors off, like the window section, pulling this top off, pulling the rear door off, and he's gonna at least stay for a few hours and just kind of give me a hand working through some of this stuff. So I'll be helping him, helping Nick, just trying to get as much done while I've got 2 helpers as I can, and then I'll go back to focusing on trying to get this started. We don't need to paint that tailgate at all. It matches the trim.
You need to put this in your whole thing.
That is a proper 4-wheel drive. Plan is to integrate some sort of a switch panel. I can't believe how good this looks. So, I had to turn the cameras off. I apologize, but we have an insane amount of work to do, and I have been filming every step. There's a step. Been filming every step of the way. We're at a point now where we have just got to get stuff done. So, as you can see, we got the rear winch mount situation done. This is 1/4 inch. I wanted to just do, it looks more military to me to have like a single recovery point. I just think it looks so, it just matches the vibes here for me. So I welded this to like the factory cross member back here. Then we took 1/4 inch plate, placed it over it, and then welded it into that 1/4 inch plate. So this is super beef. And then sandwiched on the other side is gonna be our winch mount. Hey, that spider likes wet paint, I guess. So we didn't get that done, but it's Saturday night. This video goes live tomorrow morning, so we're not gonna get that done. But I think that it's gonna help with our weight allocation. I did get the battery mounted up in here. So again, trying to move that weight back, very, very important to me. And I mean, yes, we have a long way to go, but the fact that it runs, the fact that I didn't see fluids gush out anywhere, the fact that it probably just restarts right now, all those things make me very, very happy. As you can see, we don't have a steering wheel.
Fires right up. I appreciate everybody who's been voting. It means the world to me that you would take the time to vote. And I know that this Onyx build challenge didn't turn out the way we started, but I think that we're gonna end with 2 very cool rigs. And you know what I'm excited for? I'm excited for the day when both of these are done and that truck is towing this to some badass trail. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I don't know what the next one's gonna look like. We have 5 days until we leave. So considering that it doesn't stop, it doesn't go yet, and it doesn't steer, instead of filming and editing, I'm going to just do all the work. And then the next video, I'll take you along for the first drive, and then we will tow it down to Arizona. And the next video, we're gonna wheel this thing. Instead of working on it, you've been watching me work on it, let's wheel it. Thank you so much for everybody who's been voting. And if you have the time, you know, this video will probably get a bunch of views. Let's say like 10,000 of you go and vote for Team Dirt Lifestyle. We have a real chance. So if you have an Onyx account and you're watching this video right now, even if you have voted for other teams in the past, vote for me, please. Give me 1 vote. And then we'll see what we do at the challenge. I know that bare minimum, we're gonna have a ton of fun. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.